Welcome to Poetry Lockdown, day 46. Very excited about today's poet, Walt Whitman. Whoa. Um, so this poet and one of the poems for today's lockdown is thanks to a request from my Uncle Mark Jervy. Shout out to Aunt Mary Jo and Uncle Mark, and to all these family members, both on my mom and dad's side, the Walters and Zayas, who are tuning into these. Thank you. Means a lot to get that familial love during this time of isolation. So Whitman, you know, love him or hate him, he's so important, and I happen to love him. His poetry is really important in my life. Um, but I mean, the truth is, with all these different poets that we've looked at, I read and have shared a lot of contemporary poets with you on these lockdowns, and to be honest, their poetry isn't really even imaginable without the influence of Whitman on the course of poetry the last 150, 200 years. He just broke open just so many different options and saying, you know what, poetry is for the common person and the common person's experience and language. And like I said, whether you love that or hate that, you can't deny Whitman's influence on the world of poetry. So I'm going to read two poems. One is Uncle Mark's request, "Oh Captain, My Captain," made famous, well, for many things, but it's Dead Poet Society, all the students standing up at the desk. And then a beautiful poem that he wrote, "The Wound Dresser," based on his experiences as a field nurse during the American Civil War. Just so you know, this could be a little longer than 5 or 6 minutes because there's a lot to say about Whitman. So let's start before jumping in with "Oh Captain, My Captain." I just want to give you a little sense of Whitman's vision as a poet. This is from his preface to "The Leaves of Grass," and I think it really gets at why Whitman's so important to the history of poetry, especially poetry in the United States. From the preface, he says, "The messages of great poets to each man and woman are, come to us on equal terms. Only then can you understand us. We are no better than you. What we enclose, you enclose. What we enjoy, you may enjoy. Did you suppose there could be only one supreme? We affirm that there can be unnumbered supremes, and that one does not countervail another any more than one eyesight countervails another." I love that because it really encapsulates something central to Whitman's vision of poetry, which is that it is for everyone. It is everyone's birthright to see themselves in poems and to voice themselves in poetry. And he definitely lives that out throughout his body of work. "The Leaves of Grass" is a great example. So many people can find themselves in that poem, and so many have. Now, let's talk about "Oh Captain, My Captain." If you know Whitman's history, you know that he's someone who's very proud to be an American and very proud of the American experiment. And so the Civil War, which really divided the nation literally, was an agony for him, and also something he felt compelled to document in his poetry. And he really saw Abraham Lincoln as a hero and someone that just when Lincoln was assassinated, it crushed him. It really did. So "Oh Captain, My Captain" is definitely a poem for Lincoln. So let me read that poem. "Oh Captain, My Captain." "Oh Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack. The prize we fought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh heart, 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 oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold and dead. Oh Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills. For you bouquets and ribboned wreaths, for you the shores a crowding. For you they call, the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound, its voyage closed and done. From fearful trip, the victor ship comes in with object won. Exult, O shores, and ring, O bells, but I, with mournful tread, walk the deck, my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. It's a beautiful poem. There's a lot I could say about it, lots of people could say about it, but the thing that I just want to mention that connects back to that little piece of prose that I read of Whitman's is this idea of Whitman having no shame and being totally willing to identify Lincoln as my father. And there's that sense of intimacy in almost all of his poetry, the sense where you and I, we're connected, we're related here. And I think I love that very much. And he's got another beautiful poem, if you know Whitman's work, when last, it's something about lilacs in the dooryard. I don't, clearly I'm not a scholar of Whitman, but he's got another beautiful poem that's a lot longer and probably more representative of Whitman's style. I start with this one because it's striking to me. It's very traditional form, right? You can probably, you heard the very regular rhyme and meter, and that's actually not characteristic of Walt Whitman. He really busts that wide open in much of his work. So the next poem that I'm going to read, I'm not going to read all of it. And actually, as I was thinking about it and prepping for this little lockdown today, I looked back over my collected works of Whitman, and if you look at the notes on the page, you can see these little dashes. There are moments when I memorized this poem once upon a time. It's like 150 lines. It was like day by day, I would take a little 3 or 4 lines, and I don't have any of the poem in my memory anymore, which is really depressing. But I'm going to read a section of it. So the wound dresser, in this poem, Whitman is recalling the time he spent as a hospital nurse for wounded Union soldiers during the American Civil War. It was in Washington, D.C. And in fact, where I went to university there for graduate school was really close to the grounds of that field hospital. So it's a 5-part poem, and it has been dramatized in various ways. Musical versions of it exist that are just exquisite. Just check those out because they're wonderful. But I'm just going to read one section of it, and I've linked the longer poem. I'd really recommend it, but this would be a very long lockdown if I read all of it. Okay. The wound dresser selection. But in silence, in dreams, projections, while the world of gain and appearance and mirth goes on, so soon what is over forgotten, and waves wash the imprints off the sand. With hinged knees returning, I enter the doors, while for you up there, whoever you are, follow without noise and be of strong heart. Bearing the bandages, water, and sponge, straight and swift to my wounded I go, where they lie on the ground after the battle brought in, where their priceless blood reddens the grass, the ground, or to the rows of the hospital tent, or under the roofed hospital, to the long rows of cots up and down each side I return. To each and all, one after another, I draw near, not one do I miss. An attendant follows, holding a tray. He carries a refuse pail, soon to be filled with clotted rags and blood, emptied and filled again. I onward go. I stop, with hinged knees and steady hand to dress wounds. I am firm with each. The pangs are sharp yet unavoidable. One turns to me his appealing eyes. Poor boy, I never knew you. Yet I think I could not refuse this moment to die for you, if that would save you. Beautiful stuff, huh? So this, as you can see, is very strikingly different and written. I don't think they were in radically different time periods of Whitman's life, so you can see his capacities as a poet, his range. But this free verse. Obviously, it's not got a regular rhyme and meter, although it's definitely rhythmic. I mean, you can sense that in as I was reading it aloud. One of the things that I just want to point out, I don't want to go on and on. So I've already got 10 minutes of screen time here, but I think one of the things that Whitman leaves with us as a legacy is his desire to reach out directly to you, the reader. And if you were listening to yesterday's lockdown, Mary Oliver gave a great example of that. She sort of challenges you. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? She says at the end of her poem. And that I think is definitely an inheritance, a legacy from Whitman. In the middle of this poem, he's talking about his own experience, but then he's thinking about us reading the poem years and years later now. With hinged knees returning, I enter the doors. In parentheses, he says, while for you up there, whoever you are, follow without noise and be of strong heart. I just love that. And I think that's one of the reasons he sticks around. We are always invited. We're always invited into Whitman's world. And I think that invitation, sometimes it's gentle, sometimes it's like weirdly insistent, is part of the reason Whitman, I think, will always be important to American poetry. So thank you for listening to me ramble on enthusiastically about Walt Whitman. I'm not going to read any of those again because I've already gone on too long. Hope you have a great Friday and a great rest of your weekend.